It is a hard challenge to get a job that you want to have experience in, but you don't have enough experience to get that job. And ways that I am overcoming that are partnering with the career services and getting engaged with internships, also building a volunteer relationship with aerospace companies.
So then, I go to my first job and they want you to have experience doing all these things that have to do with drinking water. But it was like, I've worked in a lab for 2 years. I've done lab work. And so trying to relate your experiences, I think, is what they're looking for usually when they're talking about experience.
I would thank the military for giving me the leadership, the knowledge, the skills, the professionalism to avoid that speed bump. Yeah, you might not have the exact experience in a specific field, but having a military background, employers, especially now, employers know what you're bringing to the table.
Perhaps the greatest conundrum in careers at every stage is something I call the permission paradox. And that is, you can't get the job without the experience, but you can't get the experience without the job. How you confront and ultimately break the permission paradox is key to getting your first job, but it's also critical all the way throughout your career. The conundrum of the permission paradox really is ubiquitous. Whether you're starting out or you're looking for a promotion or moving from thing to thing, most times people want those that have done that same thing before. But how do you get that first shot? You can't get the job without the experience, but you can't get the experience without the job. So how do you break through? Number 1, build credentials. Certain fields require some credentials to get in there. And if you've studied something different in college to what is required to get in, then find a way through additional education or offerings online to get that credential. Many fields, actually, like medical or law, require serious credentialing. And of course, you can't become a lawyer without having gone to law school and passing the bar. In healthcare, in finance, there are many different fields that require some degree of credentials that even after you've finished your formal education, you can go about and do. Let's say you want to become an entry-level computer programmer, one of the hottest fields in the economy, but you haven't done a lot of coding in college. There are plenty of ways to getting coding credentials. Consider taking an online course or getting a professional certification that will teach you and get you qualified for a marketable skill. And that one extra skill may be just what you need to get your foot in the door and get considered for the job. A second way to break the permission paradox is to get creative. And by that, I mean you can reimagine your experience.
So I began my career in a way that most technology entrepreneurs don't. I was a medieval history major in college, and after leaving college, I joined Teach for America, teaching in one of the poorest, most violent communities in West Baltimore. And while I was there, I witnessed the conversion of America's industrial and manufacturing-based economy in West Baltimore into an increasingly technology-rich, knowledge-based economy, and knew that kids growing up in communities like the one that I did in West Virginia or like the ones that I taught in Baltimore, kids growing up there were going to have technology skills. So I started a company, started a social entrepreneurship venture in a basement with 2 friends. That grew to become successful over the course of 8 years, going from a basement to a company with programs on 3 continents and in a dozen countries. Went from there into politics and government. I ran technology and media policy for Barack Obama's presidential campaign, the first one in 2007 and 2008, and from thence to working for Hillary Clinton for 4 years as her senior advisor for innovation.
Here's an example. If you want to get a job at eBay or Etsy or an online marketplace, then start a small company that buys or sells things on their platform. The experience you will get will both give you insights and make you stand out from the crowd. And one other way to get creative, take on some side projects. Do something yourself. We live in a great world where anybody can try anything. Do something on Kickstarter to try and raise some money. Start selling t-shirts for your dorm. Any entrepreneurial activity will make you stand out for the crowd, give you experience, and give you something to talk about in your interviews. Number 3, don't be afraid to start at the bottom. I know we all want to work on important strategic matters at the highest levels, but sometimes not only is it easier to get your foot in the door at the bottom, but you actually gain invaluable experience that will make you that much more marketable. No one becomes an executive at UPS unless they started as a driver. Most successful executives in the retail industry started selling on the storefront. Many of the leaders in the online world started or recommend that you start in customer support, where you're engaging with real customers solving real problems. That gets your experience and it gets you the ability to tell your story. The next strategy is barter. You can actually barter your way through the permission paradox. If you're a young person and you don't yet have a job, you have one thing that senior people don't have any of, and that is the rare commodity of time. Use your time creatively and use your time wisely. Do some research. When you have an informational interview, try and get a sense of what the person you're talking to would do if they had an extra day of the week, and then offer to do a project to see if you can help. I've seen many people actually get jobs by finding out what someone would do if they had more time and offering to try that out on a project basis. It takes a little bit of courage, but go for it. And reimagine your experience. A lot of times people read the requirements on a job specification and say, I don't have those specific experiences, and therefore they don't even try. But the creative people will reimagine their experience. By reimagine your experience, I'm not saying to make stuff up, but you actually may have more relevant experience than you give yourself credit for. Let's say a job is saying they're requiring project management skills. You're just coming out of college. You've never done project management. But actually, maybe you have. A young geography major that I know, he organized a trip to Eastern Europe with a group of his friends. He did the entire itinerary, he did the budgeting, he did the reservations, and he came back and they all made it safely and soundly. When he interviewed for a job at an online travel company, he talked about that as his project management experience. He got the job. And of course, there's no better way to start breaking the permission paradox than if you're fortunate enough to get an internship while you're still in school. Many internships don't lead directly to a job after graduation. In fact, only a very small proportion do, but they absolutely inform your story and they start giving you access to the kinds of experiences that you can talk about to leverage to getting the job. No matter which of these strategies or any variant thereof you choose, I hope you can see that there are creative ways to break the permission paradox. You can get the job without the experience. And then when you do, you can start to get the experience to get the next job.
So my big thing for young people, and it's a little bit what I did, is do 2 or 3 different things while you're a couple of years out of school. My first job was as a paralegal, and because people thought government major, maybe you want to be a lawyer. Well, I hated it. I quickly learned that I'm never going to be a lawyer. I don't like that kind of work. So I learned that really quickly. I then worked as a trader on the floor of the stock exchange. I learned a ton about what was going on in the markets, but I also realized it's not a place I want to spend the rest of my life, because at the end of the day, the work is done and you go home, and I like to continue to think about problems, and I'm a very curious person. So just the cadence of that work didn't make sense for me. And then I worked at a consulting firm where I was working with large companies, helping them figure out how to think about where they should put their operations globally based on what's going on politically and economically in those countries. And that was much more interesting for me. And so I started learning these are the kinds of things I like to do. I think it's really important before you're 30 years old to have 7 or 8 different experiences so you can figure out what you like and what you don't like. And what nature of work and what nature of interactions with people that that really you're good at and what you like to do. You don't learn that by being in school. You just don't. It's an artificial environment, and it's not how work really happens.